Welcome back to PodRocket, a web development podcast brought to you by LogRocket. LogRocket provides AI-first session replay and analytics, which surface the UX and technical issues impacting user experiences. Start understanding where your users are struggling by trying it for free at logrocket.com. I'm Josh Goldberg, and we're back with our panel episode where we'll be talking about AI platform consolidation, open source independence, and the true cost of AI infrastructure. But before we get into it, let's introduce and welcome our panel. First off, we have Paige. Paige is a staff software engineer at Blues and co-host of the Front End Fire podcast. Paige, how are you doing?
I am doing good. I am glad to be here. Excited to talk about this stuff.
Yeah. Next up, we got Jack, who is the blue collar coder on YouTube and also the co-host of the Front End Fire podcast. What's up, Jack?
Hey, happy to be here. Happy to talk AI. Happy to talk about Subaru Connect, all that stuff.
Heck yes.
Let's go.
And last but not least, we have Paul, a PodRocket host and YouTuber. How are you doing, Paul?
Great. I say YouTuber because I don't make a lot of videos, but they exist. Yeah, excited to dig in, especially some of the recent Bun stuff going on. Now we're going to chat about that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Bun getting acquired. Ooh, okay. Does it make for a new open source acquisition model?
Seems like it.
I think so.
For context, the implications here we're talking about are all from Anthropic, the AI company, acquiring Bun, which is a JavaScript runtime. So let's start off with first impressions. What do you all think? What does this mean for the industry?
Smart by them.
Surprising, I think. I felt like the people that I know that talk about this kind of stuff, like Jack, like Paul, like everybody, didn't really see it coming. But it also makes total sense when they did a little bit of an explanation, because Bun apparently is powering Claude Code, which is Anthropic's flagship project, which has already reached, what I think is it, $1 billion in annualized revenue returns. It's one of those like acronyms. But anyway, it's making a lot of money. So it does really stand to reason that if they want to continue to build on that and continue to use Bun as the driver underneath, that they would bring it in-house. That actually makes a ton of sense when you think about it.
And also, it's what they're putting on top of Bun in terms of like building applications, right? If you're marketing to a company where, okay, so you want to give Claude to the HR person so that they can help build forms internally to go and, I don't know, sign up for the basketball court or whatever. Having the ability for Claude to just go and build on top of a Bun instance, something that just works right out of the box, connects to all the databases, which Bun now does directly without any external packages. It can create executables. It can run websites all out of one thing. That's a fantastic build target. And the person who's using Claude Code would have no idea that it was JavaScript under the hood.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a thing that makes a basketball court reservation form. Boom, done, that kind of thing.
I also think it's a risk management a little bit. I always find it wild when a big company buys some project and it's just like, okay, here's this like Pandora's box, A, now you have to fix it. Or B, they don't buy it and they maybe fund the person, they fund the project, and they just hope the lights stay on. This really feels like we're lifting the curtain a little bit, and Anthropic's like, we want a secure platform to ship this to non-devs. Like you were saying, Jack, like how are they going to do that? They need something that they own front to back that they can bottle up and let the HR person use to sign up for the basketball court. Because that's what,
Yeah, and Bun has been very express. They got the $7 million, I don't know, 3 years ago or so. And even at the time, you were like, why did they get $7 million? What, for Bun? What is that about? And they haven't been hiding the fact that they have no idea how they're going to monetize it. They had no service. They had nothing. Yeah, to your point, if an Anthropic is building on top of that and they look under the covers and they're like, hey, you guys could fold up next month and we be out. So yeah, we're going to buy you. Thanks.
Yeah.
The question is, where does it leave us, though, as Bun consumers outside of Anthropic?
Yeah, I mean, that's always the question when something that starts out as open source gets acquired. But at the same time, this to me is like a good omen for other people who are in open source or who want to build runtimes or who want to build something that not necessarily has a direct path to revenue, like Void Zero or just some of the other runtimes that we've seen pop up in the not too recent past. If you can get some big company depending on you, then maybe that's the thing. Maybe you don't have to become a cloud hosting company and expand from your roots of being a JavaScript runtime into that. There are other options to exit or to get acquired and keep building the thing that you're building and make it better and have the funding and the resources and the team that you need to do it.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
I really wonder what it means for us as Bun users, because as a netter of Reddit opinion, as I get out of bed, it's interesting to see the spread of opinion from everything is going to be ruined to now this is going to make Bun the thing. I guess we'll see it settle, but it's interesting to see like the visceral spread of how spread it really is. Yeah, we'll see.
I think it's going to be somewhere in the zone of it's going to be hard for them to justify stuff that bears no relationship to anything that they do at Anthropic.
Oh, yeah.
That's where the rubber starts to hit the road. Of, like, as an example, like Meta, they don't even use RSCs on Facebook, which was always a kind of a con about RSCs. Like, you react to something you used on the site. So if it's not integral to Anthropic's vision, then that's a problem.
Will it die on the vine?
I think most stuff that Anthropic wants to do is stuff that we want to do. So there's that. Maybe it's okay. I want to make an executable that can put up a website about basketball courts. Sure. What the heck?
Yeah. I think RSC is an interesting example because it's owned by one or two companies, or mostly framework, in this case React, adding something that is actually primarily for not one of those companies. Surely that having some large open source project like Bun, which is in many ways community driven and community used, kind of pressures Anthropic to invest in the community side of things. That would be a pretty big downside for them to lose.
Yeah. I'm curious though. So I'm on the TanStack team. That's part of what I do. We use React Query and now TanStack Start, which is getting a lot of great play because Next.js and yada, yada. We don't have a way out. We don't want to make a service. We don't want to go and get VC because VC is going to just get us to make a service, right?
Yeah.
Is this another way out? Is this another way to fund TanStack more permanently? You know, getting some mega core on TanStack Start and having them basically back TanStack. Just to be curious, like, not that I'm saying we're going to do that, but I'm just saying, would you have positive feelings about that, or would you have reservations, or both?
TanStack Start's an interesting one because it's so widely used by a particular flavor of developer. I feel like there's a tribe around TanStack.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas Bun, it's like the melting pot of what can you do with this? With TanStack, I'm like, this is my data fetching layer. And everybody here who's talking about it is thinking about this one thing. So like the conversation is scoped, the objectives are scoped. I'm not saying they're cleanly scoped, but go onto the issue list. If you were to embed all of them, they're going to be closer together in meaning. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
So that gives you guys some forward trajectory, I'm sure, that Bun can't take leniency of for community netted development and pushing that forward. Don't lean which way or another, personally, but I'm just so happy that TanStack is like, the community is vibrant. And I think that's really shows like how important the community is no matter what it is. That's the first thing I look for pulling in any new technology. Is just like how many issues and how fast do they churn?
Yeah, Jack, which specific big tech company are you selling TanStack to?
Versal?
I think one of the really great newsletters, I think Bytes, he's always got some good humor in there. And he went over the Bun acquisition and was like, congrats to him from being independently wealthy, Jared. And then he has said, premature congrats to Tanner for getting bought out by OpenAI.
I saw that.
Yeah. Not happening, guys. Like, there's no conversation. Bytes doesn't know anything. They just having fun.
This is an enjoyable topic. Let's move on to one that's a little more controversial. At around the same time that we saw the Bun announcement, we also saw an announcement from Zig, the programming language. Zig is publicly quitting GitHub as a code host, not just GitHub Actions, but GitHub altogether, and they're moving to Codeberg, another code host. They're blaming Microsoft's increasingly AI-driven focus for degraded developer and user experience, and as well as that, stability and, quote, inexcusable bugs. At the same time, Codeberg promptly got hit with a DDoS attack and went down, but is now back up. And
I love it.
Perhaps it was coincidence. And now it is back up, and you can actually look at the Zig repository on GitHub, which just now in the README points to the Codeberg one. So let's talk about what Zig's departure from GitHub signals. To start, Microsoft's AI-first strategy, is it fundamentally at odds with OSS maintainers? Is it causing problems in the product? What do we all think?
The first problem is Microsoft tried to invent something new. That's like outside of their area. So that's the first mistake. The second thing is, yeah, a lot of people don't want it forced down their throats. If you're going to invent something, you need to like talk to your users. Maybe. Again, they tried to invent something. There's mine. I dropped the mic.
Bang. Yeah, hard to follow that act.
They're like Oracle. They just buy things and then charge way too much money for it.
Let me play the counterpoint. I've noticed no degrading in just the basic GitHub infrastructure that I've seen. And I did try to do, and just recently, like a GitHub Copilot was like, hey, I see you made an error here. Would you like me to fix that for you? And I'm kind of like, sure, whatever. Go for it. It was a pretty laborious thing, and it was very pedantic about doing it, but it got it done.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to experience it. I'm not sure I do it all the time, but I didn't say anything. It's fine by me.
Yeah, it works fine. Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat as Jack. I've never experienced the degradation that Zig talked about with GitHub Actions getting stuck or getting queued up in runners for hours, forever. But at the same time, I do very much understand where you're coming from of like, I don't want AI shoved into everything and every platform, which it is at this point. I cannot open a SaaS company platform and not have them trying to get me to use their AI Copilot or helper or whatever you call it. And I ignore them almost all the time.
Yeah.
I do. Yes, I think that if you don't want to be part of the AI revolution, or you're just like, that's not where we're going, or that's not our core skill set, I can absolutely see how that would be really irritating to OSS maintainers who just want the basics that worked well before, and they're not getting any funding or any attention from any of the dev teams who worked on them previously because they're all being shipped towards AI everything. But at the same time, I never heard of Codeberg before now. So I didn't even know that that was like an option or where I would go if I decided. I think like GitLab is really the only, or Bitbucket are the only options that I knew of besides GitHub for repo storage. Yeah, I don't know.
And in comparison to Bitbucket, I'll take GitHub all day long.
Yeah, same. And I also haven't experienced any degradation issues whatsoever. I definitely think we're talking about two separate things, which is the quality of the service and are there issues with their service because of attention? And then there's the like, how are they productizing this new thing they're trying to invent and build and experience with developers? These are like two separate things. And Zig is lumping them into this one argument of now they're bad.
Right.
Okay, well, like, the service is okay. Like, we all like the service, but it's the AI thing where it's like, guys, like Microsoft, please put your foot on the brake and figure out how to correctly roll this out to people. Like, AIs work. You don't need a magic wand to like make it read a GitHub action log and give you something useful. You guys aren't doing anything like super special. The special piece is understanding your users and understanding like how to deliver your product to them. And that was missed. And if that's missed in tandem with like, oh, well, there's this other basic thing that's broken on the repo that really should just work because it's part of the Git spec, that feels really bad. And I'm sure people don't feel heard.
I will, and I'm not Microsoft, but I will come to their defense one more time. And that Zig is an interesting case because they're not getting the AI PR flood that like a JS library or a TS library is going to get. And if Microsoft can give, and I think they have tools around this, can de-junkify a lot of these PRs that are coming in for the front end libraries that are going to get a lot of AI PRs. I think there's value there, right? I don't know if Codeberg or whatever has those kind of features, but for that class of library, that would be really important.
Yeah. Zig has taken a really hard stance against AI. A friend of ours just talked about this weekend. They apparently have put into their docs no LLM submitted PRs, no LLM additional code, no LLM README updates. Like, they do not want AI generated anything near their repo in any way, shape, or form, which feels tone deaf in this day and age. Like, even how are you going to try to figure out what is written by an agent versus what was written by a human? But also, the agents can be helpful in a lot of instances. They can do documentation that we're too lazy to write up. They can do tests that we don't want to cover every single test case or potential failure state. So I understand where they're coming from, and I think that probably other people are going to follow suit. But at the same time, it's like, if you don't use these tools and other people are, you're also potentially going to be left behind because you're so against it in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
Do we think that this has implications or is an indication that we're reaching a breaking point where open source projects might want independence from, say, big tech-owned platforms or ones with a lot of AI in them?
I don't think so. Yeah, I think it's just a one-off. That's my take. An interesting one-off.
Codeberg, like I said, I'd never heard of it before now. I think that GitHub is such a dominant player in the market that even though it's owned by Microsoft and even though people might not appreciate that, if you're anywhere online in development and code, you're probably going to be on GitHub, and not being there is probably going to be a big miss for you.
Yeah. As an open source maintainer myself, I have felt some of the bugs that Zig has reported in GitHub Actions and personally grumbled about how if they weren't focusing on AI, they probably would have fixed them. But it's not gotten to the point where I would in any way be able to move off. So honestly, props and shout out to them for at least trying it out. They're standing on principles, and those principles are hard to stand on these days.
I'm just looking at the Codeberg site, and I got to say, not putting any kind of Zoidberg tie-in to Codeberg is a massive miss. Come on, guys. Seriously. Pretty lame site. Whatever.
They should definitely have some Zoidbergs. Let's add a little more fuel to this conversation. Shai Hulud came up again. So for context, Shai Hulud is a lovely NPM worm that's infected quite a few packages. It's exploiting GitHub and NPM infrastructure, or at least it was, and compromised apparently over 1,000 packages this time. While it's not directly tied to AI, this is another example that folks in the industry are pointing out of, because we're investing, or at least GitHub and Microsoft and their own NPM are investing so heavily in AI, they're perhaps drawing resources away from the teams that would be able to more directly defend against these sort of attacks. Together, these stories are starting to raise a central question that we're on track to start to discuss. Are we becoming too reliant on platforms whose priorities may or may not align with OSS communities? What happens when these platforms got bought, say GitHub by Microsoft or bought by Anthropic? So let's start talking about Shai Hulud. Does this worm highlight any sort of systemic fragility? What do we think are the kind of lessons and learnings we can take away from it coming back again?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It shows a vulnerability in the trust model of NPM, and they're working on that. So we just ran into this at 10 Stack with a whole bunch of stuff around the OIDC requirements for publishing now, which really harden the level of stringentness about where can you publish a package from. The credentials don't last very long. They're really trying to cut down on this kind of thing. There are other vectors, of course. People could just publish a bad package and try and get people on it. There's that. But I think it's more of a systemic vulnerability in NPM, first and foremost.
Yeah, we ran into the same issue over at Blues because we have a number of SDKs that we publish to NPM. And I support how GitHub tried to rectify the situation, which was going to this, forcing everyone basically over to the OIDC trusted publishing model. But they have pushed it out so quickly that there are so many use cases that they cannot support, at least initially out of the box. For instance, with us, we have both production versions of our NPM SDK that goes out and beta versions for the dev team to test against. And they're two separate scripts, but NPM currently only has the ability to put in one script as the trusted publisher. Otherwise, you'll have to use personal access tokens or...
Which expire like really fast.
Yeah, very quickly. So I was very fortunate to be able to figure out, with the help of the GitHub community, to use GitHub reusable workflows, which then allowed me to call the two different scripts that we have for our publishing. But I know that for other people that won't work for whatever reason. And the fact that they didn't have any sort of documentation or other workarounds that you could do intermediately so that you could be safer, but also not just wreck your whole publishing setup if you have a custom one, which I'm sure a lot of people do. Yeah, that really felt like a miss, and that's something that Microsoft and the GitHub team should have put more effort into and more devs on if they were going to try and force this turnover so quickly to help people get back into a good workflow, because it really sucks when suddenly your stuff isn't publishing for no other reason than your token expired again.
Yeah, my Create TypeScript app project I just haven't bothered updating it. It's currently broken for all this. I'm waiting for the second wave of complaints to come in to learn what the actual correct strategy will be.
Mm-hmm.
And how quickly are folks going to just go, you know what? I'm just not even going to publish out of CI/CD anymore. I'm just going to get a pat anytime I need it.
Exactly.
And just publish out of that.
Oh, that's how I do it.
Yeah.
Because I have so few packages that I publicly publish. I have 3. So it's just like, this is too much work. I have like things to do publishing from right now.
And that's going to open people up to more security vulnerabilities, not less, when you're manually just YOLOing it and pushing it straight from your machine.
You're so right.
Yeah.
I'm the vulnerability.
You are.
Do you have any idea where my personal access token has been?
So and the other thing is that with the Shai Hulud is one of the things it's doing is it's going and roaming around our machines looking for environment variables. And that's a pain in the butt. You know, if I'm using some SaaS services or AI keys, things like that, now what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
They got that 1Password stuff, but now you got this weird flow where it's like you got to inject EMVs and it's like, such a pain. I'm kind of running a little bit loose and I got ENV files around. Then if I get hit, I'm going to have to go and just refresh those tokens, assuming that I know that I got hit.
Right.
A little off topic, but we are in the day and age of one-stop reusable software. I'm sure you guys have like just pumped something out And I've been a huge fan of Doppler as my secrets manager for like teams, because you can make these workspaces, invite people to a team, and then everything's managed in the cloud. Nothing's local. It boots up a subshell, and then there's no end files. If I update something, like all the devs get it immediately. And now I'm just like, I don't want to pay $20 a month per dev. I can make my own Doppler. This will take me 2 days and it'll be hosted on FlyIO or whatever. But the general notion of not eating around end files, I think, is good. I've liked it. It makes me feel a little more secure.
You'll have to teach me what the flow is, because I can do it in 1Password. There are CLIs for it that'll grab it out of the vault or whatever and put it in like transiently in the shell.
That's how Doppler works, but it's like a HashiCorp vault, but with tooling.
It's just getting the LLM to realize that, like, hey, when you run tests, you got to do this extra thing.
Yeah, you really got to put in your Claude MD and be strong about it.
Don't look for the .env
You
file.
really need, you don't have end files, guy. And I love doing that, like the Iron Man thing of like talking to the LLM about some plan and being like, okay, so here I want to build this and I want to build this thing. I want to build this thing, but I'm going to go off and get some coffee now. And by the time I get back, I want this done and that kind of thing. And if it messes up on the end files, I'm like,
yeah, that's a kicker. Yeah.
Dude, it was right there.
I can't let Claude off a leash personally. I love to like plan with it and have it make a plan and make a .md file or something that it can follow, but I still won't let it just make decisions after that, because it inevitably gets off track and does something wrong or goes down the wrong path. And if I'm not watching it, it'll get pretty far down the wrong path before you can course correct.
Maybe you're not sadistic enough in how you scare it to staying on track.
Apparently not. Not mean enough to it.
There's a building, it's on fire. And all the people in the building are depending on you to get this right.
Right.
It's weird. Threatening human death is actually very effective. I recommend it.
What have we gotten to? I don't know.
There were some articles recently about how the more stern and critical you are with your AI, the more successful the usage is.
Well, that's being challenged with Claude 4.5 because it's a little bit more conversational. It's a little bit better at understanding natural language. And so that means you have to be even less mean. You're like, look, there's this, there's that. Maybe it'll run on an airplane. Maybe if it messes up, people will die. I don't know. That works. But if you're like, somebody will get shot if this doesn't go, that doesn't work anymore.
I've started doing the thing where I congratulate it. Like, oh, you did a really good job on that section over there. I really like that. And I was talking to the guy from Infinite Red because he did this as well. And he actually had a thing where I think this matters.
It does.
Because you're basically reinforcing what you want to see. And yeah, be positive, be engaging, be supportive. Oh, you did a good job.
Now that we've transitioned back to AI, let's talk about AI investments. One more topic before a break. We've got a lot of stuff getting posted out in the news about companies investing in AI. There's a lot of AI hype that's still very strong, but we may or may not be starting to see cracks show in the economics supporting it. There's a really interesting article and discussion recently with IBM's CEO where they stated that there's, and we're quoting here, no way the industry's $1 trillion AI data structure spending could possibly pay off under the current input costs. So we've got power, GPUs, cooling, real estate, networking, the whole stack. He's arguing that the current AI build-out resembles past bubbles where we have a lot of capital investments and it outpaced actual realistic returns. This perspective kind of resonates with a broader sentiment in some engineering circles that were within the Gartner hype cycle, perhaps maybe entering the trough of disillusionment. There's a lot of demand, but so are the costs, and the unit economics for inference and training are pretty challenging. Meanwhile, we're still seeing a lot of amounts of money, staggering amounts of money being burned by top AI players like OpenAI, Google, Anthropic, Meta, and so on. So there are a lot of questions about sustainability, consolidation, and how the actual cost structure can affect downstream developers. That's a lot to talk about.
It is.
So let's discuss. How are AI companies doing? Are they hitting a wall? Are we seeing infra costs exceeding value creation? What do we think about the short to medium term in this context?
Their costs are clearly exceeding their value creation for sure, and they have been for a while. Anthropic, I think, was like a 3-to-1 subsidy around some of their models where you pay $1 to them and they're paying $3 to actually run the thing. And that's not sustainable. That's when you're in the customer growth mode, looking for folks to onboard and spending more than you're going to get from them. I don't know why necessarily they're still in that mode, but they actually reduce the costs on Opus, which is pretty interesting. Maybe that's actually based on infrastructure. I don't know, but yeah, it's scary. The frontier models are scary.
I also feel like saying it's not breaking even or like they're so above costs is, you totally see it. And you also get that feeling, I'm sure if you look at the new Chinese hardware coming out, that's very impressive. It kind of like the amount of computation those chips can do. But at the same time, I get this feeling of anybody ask the US government when they told all the settlers to go claim all the land that was rightfully theirs so they could get a few acres. If you looked at that investment, you would go, hey, they're losing a lot of money. And it took a long time for the crops to be pulled and for the communities to grow. And I'm not just talking about the farmer making money to then pay taxes. I'm talking about like a town being built. Like it took 100 years for that town to get built. Every time I'm like, oh, the AI bubble, because there's just 1,000 videos on YouTube about this, like new every day. I catch myself, I'm like, wait a minute. Like Anthropic is kind of like setting us out as like settlers and figuring out how to use the land that they're giving us. And like, that's going to take time to grow into a city that then has a sticky nature to it, that it's like encompassing a piece of commerce. I am in no way educated enough to know if that matches up to the current spending or the trajectory or how these people are thinking about it. But there's an element of that I think gets ignored a lot in the discourse. And it brings me back to, you want to talk about dictatorships? I think this is where their brain is thinking a lot. Like, how can we own work? I know Josh is like looking stressed out over here, but that's what they want to do. They want to buy us all. Anthropic is not your friend. Anthropic does not like you. Anthropic wants to take a portion of your earnings and capitalize privately on it. I don't see how this is any different. I think it's a calculated move, even though as normal people, we're like, what?
Yeah.
Maybe that should be a foreboding warning of what they see a little bit.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point that I hadn't considered as thoroughly, but it makes sense when you think back to what tech companies have done in the past. What were social media companies set up to do? To connect us? No, they were there to data mine from us and get all of our personal information. And if we're not paying enough, even if we're paying something to these AI companies, that means that the other thing that they're getting from us is tons of information and training data for their models. So I agree, though. I think that there's so much weird math that's happening in the investment circles around AI with NVIDIA and OpenAI and Gemini and Google and Anthropic and all of these, where they're all agreeing to invest tons of money into data centers, but only if they start supplying this much amount of power or they're serving this many people or they're reaching these revenue goals. And it's all like, how does this all actually shake out when we take away all the incentives and the pledges and the promises? Like, where's this money actually coming from and who's going to really supply it at the end of the day? And I think that's the thing that I always struggle with is like, there's all these guarantees or handshake agreements for support and new money and investment. But is it actually happening, or is it going to happen, or is it just going to be one of those things that they say and there's a press release and then we never hear about it again?
It's circular, right? It's NVIDIA that's investing in Anthropic, which is then in turn buying NVIDIA hardware.
Uh-huh.
Everybody in that cycle, is there new cash coming into this externally? Or are they just creating an artificial demand that then they can say, oh, look at all the demand. You're creating the demand for all these GPUs.
Yeah, is there demand outside of the massive tech companies that are all investing so heavily in this? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know what it actually is when you take them out of the equation.
In fact, like, what, 3% of all Microsoft Office users actually use Copilot, or who have access to it actually use it?
Exactly.
I also just think we're not, as a society, using AI the way it's going to be. And we all agree on that, too. It's like we're not using it how it should be used. And developing an AI system right now myself, it's like, oh, we thought people were going to want to chat and make artifacts. And it's like, no, AI is there to decide if this, then that. And then the person's just like using it out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh, it like did the right thing, you know? That's a micro AI, like in a little junction. And we're going to see thousands of those proliferating out.
Yes.
So it's like, is there going to be GPU usage? Maybe not on chat GPTs, but come on, it's going to go everywhere. This stuff's going to live on your devices. Sure, it can live locally in some regards, but I really think that we are going out into the frontier and like, we don't even know that there's going to be cities yet, but there are going to be cities. And on the circular thing, Jack, this brings me back to the idea of like, we're all in a casino, there's a house, and they're shipping all these chips around. And we're like, wow, that's a lot of chips. But at the end of the day, the casino's the one who has all the chips.
You're not getting
the chips.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But in the shuffle, you know what they get is a portion of your income, a portion of your power delta over an organization. And that's what's minimizing. Like 5 years ago, you could go to your employer and go, I need this much more money. And your strong arm ability was quite large. I'm sure people already feel that diminishing. It's going to diminish more. And that's what Anthropic is capitalizing on. And it's like in the mix of them doing their chips thing, we're not noticing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I also agree about the small models thing. That's something I've been on about for a couple of years now, or one last year, is like that those 3B, 7D models that you can run locally in Olama on super commodity machines or on your phone and make those small decisions and do those little small, very finely tuned things, that's going to become huge. And it's interesting to me that like I see Hugging Face in that space. I see smaller model creators in that space, but I don't see OpenAI or Anthropic doing anything in that space to help us build out smaller models that are tunable. I mean, Meta, I guess. Meta is their Llama models that you can train, I guess, but they're still big.
It's wild you can pummel 80% of human knowledge into a 4 gigabyte binary. That blows my mind.
Right?
Yeah.
That's nuts. And it still knows the random, who is this Julius Caesar's whatever. I was like, okay, that's that. And you're like, wow, what the heck? That's impressive.
So in terms of kind of practical engineering terms and velocity and the way that we use these tools, what would you expect when models like Haiku and the other smaller ones get more and more investment and a little more capable over the next few years?
I want to see local models getting more attention and investment. I want to see WASM in my browser effectively run models, which there's projects out there, but they can be better. And when that happens, there's going to be a decoupling of everything needs to go through these big providers. Everything needs to go up to the cloud. Who knows how that transpiles into like the economics of the situation we're talking about. But there's definitely going to be a switch where people finally have that of like, oh, I can just use this technology, this AI thing in my browser disconnected on the airplane without my Wi-Fi upgrade.
We need more infrastructure to support those smaller models too, because right now it's so easy to connect to the OpenAI API or the Anthropic API or whatever, but we need to make it super easy to connect to those small models and have them running locally. And I think that's the piece that's still missing is it's a lift to get there, especially if you do want to have your own private instance running on AWS or something like that. Or even just running on your own computer, keeping it up to date and making it easy to access is still not as much a thing. That's what needs to enhance and get better, I think.
And just to circle back to the whole whatever Codeberg thing, right? If there was a vendor I would trust to go and add in like, okay, in order to run this CI/CD job, we need this 3B model deployed on my GitHub org, it would be GitHub. Like GitHub could do that sort of thing at scale. And yeah.
That's a great transition to some of our more targeted hot takes section. Before we go on to that section, we'll have a quick break and we will be right back. This episode is brought to you by LogRocket. LogRocket provides AI-first session replay and analytics, which surface the UX and technical issues impacting user experiences. Start understanding where your users are struggling by trying it for free at logrocket.com. Alrighty, let's talk hot takes. Each episode, we like to have every person come in with a few hot takes, things they want to rant about, maybe about development, maybe about life. Who wants to start us off?
All right, I'll jump into it because apparently my hot take is controversial. So we're a big Subaru family. We all have Subis. I live in Portland, Oregon, so it's not unusual. And apparently, and my wife just told me about this yesterday, that all the car manufacturers now are doing these like subscriptions. So now in order to get any kind of extra stuff on a late model Subi that I don't have, but imagine I bought a new one. If I wanted to get Remote Connect, which will allow me to have a digital key, a guest driver, vehicle status, last park location, lock and unlock, remote start, climate settings, blah, 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 Tesla supercharger access and plug and charge, I would need to pay a monthly fee to Subaru to have that. And it's just like, really? Does everything have to be a monthly charge? Come on.
I am right there with you, Jack. They're killing us with subscriptions. Everything is a subscription now. It's all monthly. And I understand from a business perspective, it smooths out your revenue across the year. It's better than one big hit, when you initially sell the product or even a yearly renewal. But at the same time, everything wants a subscription. New York Times wants me to sign up with a $1 subscription to read one article. Subaru wants me to sign up for a year-long subscription to start it remotely from the kitchen while I'm standing there looking at it. Maybe can we think about usage models? I know that people who are proposed that for SaaS in particular are like, yeah, I like being charged when I am actually using something, not just because I own this thing and I have to be able to. Let's think about usage model subscriptions. Maybe that is the way of the future. I'm happy to pay for things I'm using, but if I don't look at Netflix for a month, maybe Netflix just doesn't charge me for it until I open the app again. Is that an impossible dream?
Even the impossible dream, apparently.
Yes, it is. Paige, what's your hot take?
I don't know. I'm just overwhelmed by everything that's happening in technology. right now. I just can't keep up with it. I saw earlier this week that I think it was Anthropic gave MCP its own AI foundation. So they're giving back to the community in that way. But it's just like, does anybody keep up with everything that's coming out? There are so many tools, so many new AI things to try, to learn, to look at. I just feel a little overwhelmed by the speed of change right now. And I know it won't slow down because that's impossible, but I wish I could speed up so that I could keep up better.
I just want like less things in my life that are clearly just trying to use me for my money. I just feel like every interaction I have is all like, just how can I take a little bit more money from you? And it's like, come on, like seriously?
There are services you can pay for that will tell you which services you're unnecessarily paying for.
Right?
Block that from you.
It's infinite. I just want to go through a day not realizing just breathing in this space is costing me, I don't know, $20 a day worth of subscription services. Like, really?
Paul, what's your hot take?
Mine's much more tangential, but it's still technology related. The use of AI in general, we're so like horse blinded on what using AI means and what value it brings to our lives. When I hop into ChatGPT, I'm either trying to Google something or I'm trying to like explore some idea that I just want somebody to go back and forth on. And I'm like, this to me feels like the Google Sora of the ability to generate video. Sora is fun. It's great. Generating video is wild.
Yeah.
We can do so much with that. And it's a little dinky app. So I feel like there's ways that we can start using AI and evangelizing this. That's not like, hey, look at this cool thing, to regular people that will change their lives. And we're not doing that enough. And you're building a product. Go have somebody who's not a developer use it, like chat with it. If your mom uses Excel, show her how to download a CSV and point it to like your cloud desktop. There's just like so many little things that can help people. And the one that I want to champion with is AI is great at data. We can take tons of data and we can read it. This is like a public call to service. You know what data is publicly available as of like in the past month, 2 month, 3 month? All of the Epstein files. And everybody should download them if you're interested and figure out how to put these people in jail. It is like our collective responsibility to email your congressional bodies, to email your representatives, like find things. I found things in Massachusetts of people that aren't yet brought up in the news that are completely damning. And not all the files are even released yet.
Yeah, right.
So this is a great way for you to learn how to use AI, whether it be in Cloud Desktop, Codex, whatever, with free and public available information that is for a mission that is very important to us as a society right now. It's like very important. There you go.
Hot take.
ESA.
There you go.
Very hot take. Excellent. I have one last hot take before I open back up to the room, which is completely unrelated to everything we've talked about. OXLint or OXLint just released their typeware linting alpha, which I'm very excited about. I realize this may not be so exciting in the context of AIs, but in general, it's very interesting stuff. They have the Rust-based linter, OXLints, and then underneath that, they have the Go-based linter backends, not the full linter, called TSGO lints. So they're able to get typeware lint rules like no floating promises for TypeScript developers and JavaScript developers at a shockingly fast rate, like 10x times the kind of normal JavaScript speed.
That's great.
So nice.
That's sweet.
Very excited about that.
It's a weird thing though that like that's void zero, and then there was vtest,
Okay.
right? And then they went aux, and then there's this whole like offshoot of aux stuff, and it's just weird from a branding perspective. I would just expect that they would have like the lint or something like that. Like why aux? Just don't get that.
Their brand is like a chiseled face with like sharp edges for their words.
Chad face.
Yeah.
Chadlint.
Oh my God.
I do think this is very good for AI, though. A lot of folks have started to really feel the pain of AI written code, and the more tools we can get that automatically detect and fix, especially at high speed, the issues, that's good for them.
I just did a big project with AI. I did a lot of live coding, but if you use it for a POC, just to kind of feel out the space, and then as you want to go and productionalize it, go through it and review it and nail it down, you can create a really good hyper accelerated flow for a mid to senior engineer who knows what they're doing. It could be like, okay, I know what good code looks like. I know what bad code looks like. I know the structures that I want. And if you prompt a tool the right way, you can get there a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. That is the key though, Jack. You have to know what you're doing so that you can steer it away from the pitfalls that it will inevitably drift towards if you don't.
Yeah. Tons of asynchronous imports. Claude loves async imports, man. It'll just litter those. It's like, oh, I don't want to bring in the package just for no reason. Async import right in the middle of some massive function. You're like, okay, that's great.
Someone should write a lint rule.
Yeah, no, none of that.
Paige, Jack, Paul, this was an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining me. And signing off, everyone, this has been PodRocket. Cheers.
Bye.
Happy to be here.
Thanks.